Y'all, Brother Shay here in New Orleans Revival Center Restoration Embassy, Ambassadors for Christ, is here with another volume to add to our Christian apologetic series. And today we want to answer the question of, was Apostle Paul legit? Defending his authority in the church. See, a lot of people today are trying to downplay the importance of Apostle Paul. They'll say Paul wasn't a real apostle, or his writings shouldn't control church doctrine. Some will even say we follow Jesus, not Paul, or that his books were just letters. But here's the problem with that thinking. If you remove Paul, you remove most of the New Testament's teaching on how the church actually functions. Let's deal with this biblically. First, Paul was directly chosen by Jesus Christ himself. In Acts chapter 9, Jesus appears to Paul on the road to Damascus and says, "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting." Paul didn't volunteer for ministry. He didn't appoint himself. Christ personally called him. In Galatians 1:1, Paul says, "Paul, an apostle, not from men nor through man, but through Jesus Christ." That means his authority came straight from heaven. Second, the other apostles accepted Paul as legitimate. In Galatians 2, Paul meets with Peter, James, and John. They gave him the right hand of fellowship. They recognize his ministry. And in 2 Peter 3:15 through 16, Peter refers to Paul's letters as scripture. That's huge. Peter, an original disciple, called Paul's writing scripture. Third, Paul was entrusted with building the church. Jesus focused on salvation. Paul focused on structure. Paul tells Timothy, set in order the things that are lacking. Titus 1:5, Paul explains church leadership, pastors and elders, deacons, worship order, family roles, discipline, sound doctrine, false teaching, and spiritual gifts. Without Paul, modern churches wouldn't even know how to operate biblically. His letters are like a spiritual church manual. I always call it How to Run a Church for Dummies. Not opinions, not culture, divine instruction. Fourth, Paul's authority is rooted in revelation, not personality. In Galatians 1:12, he says, "I did not receive this from man, but by revelation of Jesus Christ." Paul wasn't preaching traditions. He was preaching what Christ revealed. And finally, rejecting Paul is rejecting God's design. 2 Timothy 3:16 says, all scripture is given by inspiration of God. That includes Paul's letters. When people say, "I don't follow Paul," what they're really saying is, "I don't like the parts of the Bible that correct me." Paul deals with authority, submission, holiness, discipline, order, and accountability. And flesh doesn't like order, but God does. So no, Paul was not a fake apostle. He was chosen by Christ, confirmed by apostles, inspired by the Spirit, and used by God to build the church. If you want a strong church, a biblical church, a God-honoring church, you can't ignore Paul.